Hello everyone. This short tutorial goes over the first module of using RapidMiner. The first step is to load up the software and load up the data. So I'm going to walk you through the process of doing so. So the first thing you need to do is to find the software, and it should be somewhere on your desktop, or you can find it from your start menu. However you're comfortable finding the software is fine. It's going to take a few minutes to load up, so you just have to be patient with that. So we are going to create a new analytical process. The new process can be created using a number of different templates. As you can see, there's some really useful templates for business analysis. What we're going to create is a very simple blank template. In this default view of RapidMiner, you will see repositories on this side, and then the operators are, there's a menu for you to choose the operators from. And the repository is where you're going to store the data, and the process panel is where our analytical process will go. So the first step we're going to do is to load up the data set. So we're going to click the Add Data button, and I'm going to navigate to where my data source is. Your data, you should have downloaded the data set from Moodle. If you haven't done so, you should do that now. And you should save it in a location that you remember. Your location is likely going to be different from where I save the data. So you just have to remember where you save the data, and you should navigate to the right location. So we're going to load up the Altoona crime rate data. I'm going to go next. It's loading the data set, and it's giving me a preview of the data set. It's asking me if the header row is the labels, they define the variables, and I'm saying yes. There could be multiple sheets in your Excel file. Right now it's just showing sheet 1 as the only viable option because that's probably the only sheet that has data in this file. But if you have multiple data sheets, they should be available on this drop-down menu. We go next, and this is confirming the file formats. Each variable has a different definition, so it's just asking you to confirm that these columns are read correctly. And you could choose to ask RapidMiner to automatically replace errors with missing values. You don't have to do so. This data set is pretty clean, so you probably don't need to handle anything like that. But this is an option that you should remember to use if you're dealing with your own data set. Okay, so it's asking me where to store the data. Please go ahead and save it in the local repository area. Particularly the data folder. And then I'm going to finish the loading. And what I'm looking at now is the finished product. So this is showing that the data set has been successfully loaded on the results panel. And it's just giving me a preview of the data set. All right, so this completes the data loading step of module 1. So now we're going to go ahead and move to step 2, which asks us to go back to the design view, which is the panel where we're going to design the process. So we already have the data, and we can now go ahead and drag the data file onto the process panel. So when you drag the data file here, it actually becomes an action process. So every process starts with a verb. Okay, it's actually doing something. So instead of having, this is just having a data set, but once you drag it over here, it becomes an action, which is the action to retrieve the file into your analytical model. Okay, so so we have done that, and then we're going to connect the output port. So look at this process. Each process usually has an output port and an input port. This, because retrieving data, it automatically has a file associated with it, and the file is basically the input, so it doesn't have an input port. It only has an output port. But many other processes are going to have both an input port and an output port, and we're going to see lots and lots of examples of that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to connect this output port to the results port. RES, it's the results port. So we're going to just drag and drop and form this line that connects the two. Okay, and once that has been formatted, then I can go ahead and click the Run button. And once I run that, I will see the results panel as the file. So basically what I did was just a really glorified version, a very, very complicated way of asking the computer to retrieve the file. So this is the action of retrieving a file. And the action of retrieving a file, the output of that action is the data file. And then it sends the output to the results port, which displays the results right here. Okay, so this is just a way of formalizing the step of opening a file in the RapidMiner environment. Okay, so this is really just an exercise for you to become familiar with process and ports. Okay, so as a reminder, your job is to actually complete the challenges that are associated with the module. I am not going to go over the challenges. I'm only going over the activity steps. It's your job to complete the challenges independently. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is to go to step model. I think that's step 2 of the module. And I'm going to go back to the design view and look under operators. So now we're going to practice with the operators. And we are going to use a filter. So if we look under examples, if I type filter, I'll be able to find examples and then filter examples. And this is the operator that we're looking for in step 2. So we're going to drag the filter example to the process panel. And I'm going to connect. First of all, I'm going to disconnect this relationship. Okay. And then I'm going to connect the output of this to the input of the filter panel. Okay, and then I'm going to click this filter process. And then in the parameters panel right here, I'm going to click add filter to define a filter. And then I'm going to set it to juvenile total. Okay, so you want to scroll down to juvenile total. I'm going to do a greater than comparison. That's the operator that I want. It's greater than, and then 0.00. So basically I'm going to filter the data to find only the cases where the juvenile total is greater than 0. So that means I'm looking for data cases where there are juvenile cases, right? So the crime data actually apply to juvenile cases. So once I have done that, I'm going to click OK. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for another operator called sort. So I'm going to find the sort operator and I'm going to drag it to the panel. Okay. I'm going to move these things around so I can make some room. And then I'm going to connect the output of the filter port process to the input port of the sort operator. And then I'm going to select this. And again, I'm going to select sort and I'm going to configure its parameters. I am going to set the attribute name to juvenile total. And I'm going to sort the direction. So juvenile total. And I'm going to sort the direction to be decreasing. Okay. So this is step 3 of the first module. Okay, and then I'm going to connect the sort output to the results port. Okay, and then I'm going to run this process. Okay, so what do you think we just did? Right, we did a series of steps. We retrieved the file, the crime data set, and then we filter the crime data set in terms of juvenile cases, right? And then we sorted the file using, again, juvenile total. So we should get a data set. This is the output data set with only cases where the juvenile total is greater than 0. So we shouldn't see any case that's 0, right? So everything is at least one case, right? So we filtered all the juvenile cases, all the cases that involve juvenile crime. And we also sorted the data set using this column. So you can see that these functions or operators were applied properly to this file. In other words, mission accomplished. Step 3. So now, step 4, we're going to return to the design view, and then we're going to disconnect, okay, the sort function from the results port. Okay, we're going to search for the aggregate function, and then we're going to drag it. So aggregate is right here, and we're going to drag it to the panel. We're going to connect the output of sort with the input of aggregate. And then we're going to click on aggregate so that we can configure it. We're going to go to the parameters panel and set aggregation attribute to juvenile total again. And sum for the aggregation function. So I'm going to scroll down and find sum. And then I'm going to set, so this is, I'm going to apply, and then the group by attribute, I'm going to set it to offense code. And finally, I'm going to connect the output to the results port. And then we're done with this process. Now click play to run this process. Look at the results of this process, right? So we're actually getting one row and the sum is 2073. What do you think we accomplished? And this is the end of module 1. Thank you very much.